Welcome back, everyone, to the study on the Epistle of 1 Peter on exhortation. And we have been going through the pericope of 1 Peter 2:11 through 3:12, exhortations based on social groups. And you can see here the couple parts that we have gone through: behavior, condition and behavior, the relationship to government, masters, non-Christian husbands is what we're going to be talking about today. And then next part will be relationship to wives and relationship to the Christian family of God. And then that will bring us into the second larger pericope in 1 Peter. But before we continue with relationship to non-Christian husbands, this is part 9, 1 Peter 3:1 through 6. I have actually a few special guests with us right now. Very special. This is my wife, Danielle, and she's holding our 17-year-old. She's 1.5 months?
She's 7 weeks.
7 weeks old now, our little baby Gemma. And you might hear some rustling around in the background over there too. Our dog Lucy is up here with us. But she is going to join us on this one because we're talking about wives, women, you ladies, okay? As you can most likely tell with the facial hair and stuff, I am not a lady. So I brought in the ammunition, I guess you can say, to help me out with this part. But we are going through chapter 3, 1 through 6. So here's the part where you can pause it and read through those verses so you can be familiar with them as we go through this video. All right, so to continue on with, to start this study, verses 1 and 2 of chapter 3, wives, in the same way, submit yourselves. Submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives, when they see the purity and reverence of your lives. So, in the same way, all right, is referring to the same way that slaves submit to masters and how the readers were to submit to every authority. And if you've been a part of the study and you watched those 2 videos and you were part of the discussions, there's probably a lot to say on submission. And then we get to the point where wives are supposed to submit. And if you remember from those past studies, the past videos, this is not one of those, you must bow down to me type things. This is, how are we going to serve other people? This goes back to the whole main thesis of 1 Peter found in 2 verses 11 and 12, which is, live such good lives so that others see your behavior and glorify God on the day he visits us. It's the conduct of how we live. So 2:11 through 12 is the basis for submission, that we live such good lives that they will see it and in turn believe. Now, there's one thing I want to point out before we get to the next slide, is that it says, wives, in the same way, submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that, and the verse continues, your own husbands. Now, there was probably most likely this idea that now that I'm a Christian, I need a Christian husband, so I'm going to leave this guy and go with someone else. And that was just, to Peter, I think that was what he was getting at when he was saying your own husbands, because he brings it up again, kind of slips it in there a little bit later on in these verses. All right, so next slide. If any of them do not believe, Peter's audience was most likely more women than men. Now, this is applicable to men as well, who may not have a wife that is a believer. That is possible. So please note that Peter's main exhortation is holy, righteous living so others will come to Christ. All right, so it's not like women are the only ones that can, witness to their husbands or something like that. It's or to any guy. Okay, that's not what's going on here. It is an overarching lifestyle that Peter's getting at. But talking to wives, the question was, what do we do if our husbands don't believe? And he's saying, live that same righteous life that everybody else is doing towards their government, towards their slaves, towards the family of God. You do this same thing with the husbands. This is not a verse for husbands to use on their wives to get them to obey. Like, go make me a sandwich, woman. Though she may make me a sandwich, I very much appreciate it. Yeah. So, for example, 2 Timothy 3:14 through 17 does not give precedence to debate or argue with others. It encourages to be thoroughly equipped for every good work. So when it comes to this righteous living that a wife to her non-believing husband should exude, it should not be for debate. It should not be for argument. This whole living among others is to be a servant, to exude the life that Christ wants us to, that love. All right, so next slide, purity. When they see the purity and reverence of your lives, this word purity, exciting reverence, or venerable, sacred, and the reverence of your lives, or fear, or be in awe of. And Peter goes into what that actually looks like. But like I said, we're going to interview my wife here with a couple questions as we go. We're going to do that as we go along. And my first question for you, my love, is what is the most challenging thing about being a female? But more so, man. I can't argue against that. As far as purity is concerned, both as a single person, because way back in the day, you used to be single. She's so old. 12 years ago. We'll be married 12 years. And as a married person. So, go ahead.
Most challenging.
And speak loud.
Okay, I'll try. As a single person, I think purity is sometimes misunderstood. And I don't remember where I heard it, but when they tell you, be pure till you're married, this person said, no, be pure always. You don't give up your purity because you're married. So when you think of a purity ring, that's really only like on the sexual end of things, where purity should be all parts of your life. So I think that needs to be taught differently to I want to say especially single females, because for some reason I feel like it's pushed on females more than men. So then that just carries into marriage, where because I'm married now, that doesn't mean I can just do whatever I want to do and act however I want to act. In all areas, in sexuality, and all of it, and the things I say, and the way I treat him, and the way I treat the kids, they all need to be things that people can look at and emulate, because they're honorable. And I mean, I think purity is just everything that's good. Purity is Christ, and if what I'm doing isn't Christ-like, it's not pure.
Yeah. I've observed that it's been tried to be presented to both males and females at that it's very black and white. Like, it's just, this is what purity is, and it's simple, and it's this and that. But in reality, it's a fight. It's a battle, because it's not just the external things that are around us that are trying to vie for our lives, that say that you have to act and look a certain way and buy these certain things. It's also all in our mind too. Jesus said it best when he said, even if you think about somebody with some lustful thoughts, you're committing adultery. And I think those kind of things are sometimes hinted at, but really not fully put forth when it comes to teaching about what purity really is. And as far as being married and everything, I think the idea that, things will get easier, I won't have temptations or anything when I'm married, which is a complete utter lie, because it's true. Those things are still around. Like, there's still the billboards, there's still the movies and whatnot. Those things are still around, and just because you're married and have freedom to do really great fun things doesn't mean that they all go away. So thank you for that answer. That was very good. All right, so purity and reverence of your lives, fear, be in awe of. So Peter goes into what that looks like in the following verses 3 and 4. Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. So, in other words, you shouldn't have to dress to kill. And guys, this is probably you too, because you got to get those muscles, you got to get the right vibe, grow the nice beard. Proverbs 31:30, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Charm is I can't tell you how many people, both male and female, will just try to use those right words to get what they want. And I'm not talking about relationally, but just to obtain a certain item or get a certain service. It's kind of ridiculous, especially if you've worked in retail, how people try to scheme their way through certain things. And then braided hair, gold jewelry, and fine clothes. Quiet you. Some translations say hair braided with gold. An ancient writer, Xenophon of Ephesus, describes such braiding as erotically attractive. What they would actually do sometimes is weave those golden strands throughout the hair to make it look more attractive, to draw attention to, and all that. Okay. 1 Timothy chapter 2 verses 9 and 10 says, I also want the women to dress modestly, with decency and propriety, adorning themselves, not with elaborate hairstyles or gold or pearls or expensive clothes, but with good deeds, appropriate for women who profess to worship God. Peter exhorts his readers to avoid cultural trends. What kind of cultural trends are out there right now that say, hey, if you do this, if you act a certain way, if you get this, you're going to be beautiful? All right, what kind of things are there out there? Which brings me to my second question. What makes you feel beautiful? This is making me nervous.
I don't know.
You don't know. That's a great answer. Because usually that is the answer. Hey, what do you want for dinner tonight? I don't know. And honestly, sometimes it does come down to that. Like, maybe it's a momentary thing as well too, but what's the kind of thing that makes me happy? What's the kind of thing that really gets me, like, where's that niche in my life that gets me going, and sometimes what it comes down to is a lot of things we look forward to are the things that are very temporary, whereas you get that joy, you get that happiness, that feeling of worth, all from our Creator. So do you want to answer the question, or did you ask anything?
It's probably easier to answer what makes you not feel beautiful.
That's a better question then. What makes you not feel beautiful?
Culture.
Can you be more specific?
Movies, billboards, magazines.
Yeah.
All of it. I don't know. Especially as a mom of 4 kids, it's really hard to feel beautiful. Three of which are
females. But that actually reminded me of a video. I think it was Dove, not the chocolate. Dove soap had a video years ago that went through a fast-paced process of what they do for like a billboard. And it started off with, hey, this is get your picture taken, and they do the hair, do the makeup, and then they take the picture, a couple more pictures, bring it to the Photoshop, and they change like the lady's jaw structure, like elongating it and clearing up the skin and stuff, and then they put it on this billboard. And you think back, like that's not even the same lady.
It's not even an actual person.
Yeah, it's a computerized person at that point. And that's what culture really, our culture anyway, in the Western world really portrays, that this is what beauty is, that you have to achieve something that really isn't as achievable at when you start realizing it in the second glance. Speaking of beauty, hold her up to the camera. This is my little Sicilian. Oh, a little pinch of my cheeks. I love it. Oh, she's pooping, so I'll hold her. All right. So, Peter exhorts his readers to avoid cultural trends, and that's basically the reason why we shouldn't, and especially you ladies, should not have to dress to kill. And also, I mean, if you get the attention of Prince Charming or whoever it might be, and you get the attention by dressing up so fine, but that's all they're in to you for. If that's the only thing, then really, what are they liking you for? They're not liking you; they're liking your body. And I think that's a message out there that is always taught, that you are your body, and really the truth is you are more than just your body. You are the creation of God that is to be praised and honored for the great things that you do. All right. All right, so inner self, the secret things of the personal heart, that is. In other words, do not put on an act. All right. Remember back to chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, going through that whole list of, rid yourself of malice, deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander. Don't put on that act. Don't be that hypocrite that says, I live in a certain way, a certain manner, and putting on this act that I'm so beautiful, and I'm going to hide all this other stuff and only show the good things. God doesn't want us to be a fake. He wants us to be honest about who we are. And if the things are ugly and we're afraid to reveal those things, we should reveal them first to God, because he's the one that can work through those with us a lot easier than what others can. I mean, others can. They might go through it in a way that is helpful, and they may do it in a way that is not helpful. There may be people out there that will prey on those types of people to get whatever they want. All right, an unfading beauty of the spirit, not corruptible. Unfading is not corruptible. A gentle spirit, meekness, such as not disputing or resisting. If you go back to Matthew in the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. And then unfading beauty of a quiet spirit, peaceable or tranquil. And continue with the Beatitudes, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. The following two verses are an example of this, what this unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit is. So verses 5 and 6. For this is the way the holy women of the past who put their hope in God used to adorn themselves. They submitted themselves to their own husbands, like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him her Lord. You are her daughters if you do what is right and do not give way to fear. Now, pointing out again in verse 5, at the end of verse 5, they submitted themselves to their own husbands. Okay, that's the second time he brings that up. Now, the example that Peter provides is one from the Old Testament, Sarah and Abraham. Master in the Greek is kurios, is the same word used for Lord, and Lord in capital L, used to name a ruler or a master, and in naming Christ as well. You are her daughters if you do what is right. Now that just cries out repetition in the Bible. In John chapter 8, verse 39, Abraham is our father, they answered. If you were Abraham's children, said Jesus, then you would do what Abraham did. And I think we touched on this a couple sections previous, but that was their argument. Like, yeah, we're Abraham's son. And then Jesus points that out, and then they're like, yeah, we're sons of God. Yeah, that's what we are. Oh, God bless you. So he says, Peter writes, do not give way to fear. That is, in being in awe of something terrifying, or being overcome with terror. The New King James Version says, are not afraid with any terror. And the King James Version, are not afraid with any amazement. Think of things that cause us to fear, such as the internal things and the external things. What's going on in our hearts, what's going on in our minds, and the external things, like something that's going on around us, something in our town, or in what's going on in the world. And then things that cause us to fear that are applied or absent. Like, think of it in these terms, that we need to apply certain things to our lives, because without that we might fear, or the opposite, that without being able to do something, that we would be fear. And also tangible and missing. We need to have a certain item. We need to buy that new thing, to have it with us. If it's missing, we fear. Something that we do have, maybe a sickness, or certain circumstances that are tangible, that cause us to fear. Which brings me to the third question. What are specific fears a female might have in the context that Peter presents in these verses?
Not being accepted. Go into detail.
That's something earlier I actually thought of when you were talking about the first or second question. And that's something definitely that's very fearful, because it could be devastating to work towards getting the attention from somebody, or working towards, and honestly, in any circumstance too, trying to work up the corporate ladder and having that disappointment of not getting that Prince Charming, or getting that position at work, or anything like that. The fear of not being accepted is definitely a very real and viable thing. When it comes down to rejection, that is something that we need to learn how to grieve through. And honestly, we should be able to mourn those things, because, just get over it. That doesn't really work. If it's something that causes pain and causes hurt, rejection is one of those things. We need to learn how to mourn through those and grieve through those things. And what can we do to come out the other side? What are certain things that we need to trust God in as we make our way to the other side as well, when it comes to that? So, any other thoughts before we go to the questions? No? Well, thank you. All right. So that brings us to questions for reflection. Peter addresses wives who have a husband who does not put faith in Christ. Are these instructions exclusive, or are they inclusive to others? Is this pericope strictly for women toward men? Can they be applied toward others in some way? What does Peter teach on how to present oneself? What is the purpose and intention in certain attire? Think of many ways we respond to fear. How would a first-century Christian woman in Rome have to fear if her husband was not a Christian? What fears might we have today if a spouse or loved one is not a Christian? All right, and thank you once again for watching, and we'll see you out there. God bless.